of our alumni as part of the school celebration of its 50th birthday. It is a joyous occasion for all of us as we come together to mark and celebrate this significant milestone. This award ceremony is particularly important for our university. It provides us with an opportunity to reflect on the school's achievements, its contributions to the media and journalism industry in South Africa and beyond, and its plans to build on these achievements in the years to come. I know that the staff at the School of Journalism and Media Studies believe that good education plays a crucial role in building a bright future for journalism in this country. They are committed to providing an intellectually rich and stimulating environment in which our students can thrive, can embrace good values, and gain new insight every day, so that they can help us build a better and sustainable future. The road that these students will have to travel is not an easy one. Those of you who are here as alumni of the school are, of course, aware of this, since you know the challenges faced by journalists in this country today. Our nation is in a crisis. We are at a crossroads, and many South Africans are losing confidence in democracy. Journalists have a vital role to play in rekindling hope, in holding power to account, and in opening up spaces for a rational debate. A well-informed and engaged citizenry is able to participate meaningfully in a democratic system of government. Journalism is essential in fostering such a citizenry. But for journalists to fulfill this role is increasingly difficult in a world in which journalism itself has become precarious. Journalists are constantly at the risk of violence, imprisonment, and death. Karen Moore, one of the best legal journalists in South Africa, has been hauled in front of a court for her reporting on the corruption case of Mr. Jacob Zuma. This is just a desperate attempt to bully, intimidate, harass, and silence Karen. Such a frontal attack on media freedom and freedom of expression is an affront on our constitutional dispensation and stands strongly condemned. Some of you have walked this treacherous road and have achieved excellence for the sake of good journalism and for the sake of our country. You represent what is best about South African journalism by striving for truth and justice and fairness. And you have adhered to the highest standards of journalistic ethics. For that, we are immensely grateful and proud of you. These are the ideas that our democracy was founded on, and we must, as a collective, guard them. This evening, we celebrate you all for your respective roles in guarding these esteemed principles. We are extremely pleased that the contribution of each and everyone present here has borne fruit and deepened our project of nation building. We thank each one of you for having joined us here to add grace to this ceremony. Thank you very much, and we wish you well as we honor and celebrate our outstanding alumni this evening. I thank you.
Thanks to Dr. Mabizela for those thoughtful words. Before we proceed, I have been asked to mention to you that we heard this morning of the death of...
John, we can't hear you.
Oh, that's odd. I'm not muted. Okay. Thanks to Dr. Mabizela for those thoughtful words. Before we proceed, I've been asked to mention to you that we heard this morning of the death of Donald Presley. He is one of our alumni. Donald, a Rhodes University graduate in 1985 in journalism and African and political studies, worked for more than 20 years as a political and parliamentary correspondent for Avusa, business reporter and iNet Bridge. In 2006, he was a media fellow at Duke University in North Carolina. He was also variously bureau chief and Cape editor for Business Report and editor of the Cape Messenger. We were saddened to hear of his passing. But we've called you together this evening for two reasons. The first is the main event of this evening, which is the honoring of 10 of our alumni. In addition to that, though, we wanted to start a conversation with you this evening about future plans for alumni in the school to work together. We've asked one of our own of the 50 people that we are honoring this year, Zubaida Jaffer, to lead us in that conversation. We are aware that that conversation needs a different time and place. So Zubaida, at the end of the ceremony, will talk briefly to you about where and when we intend to take that conversation further. Let me now say a few things to you to place the ceremony in context. This year, we celebrate our 50th birthday at the school. And as part of our birthday anniversary activities, we have identified 50 of our alumni that we are giving awards to. As part of the selection process, we have identified people who have made important contributions to the profession of journalism and communication, and who have in one way or another through their work served society more broadly. To find these people, we looked through the list of more than 5,000 people who have graduated from the school over the past 50 years, and we asked our alumni to nominate people for the awards and to motivate for those nominations. And based on those motivations, we then came up with our list of 50. Over the past year, we are having 4 events where we are giving people those awards. So at the beginning of the year, there were 10 people who received their awards at the graduation ball in April. And then in September in Cape Town, we honored 7 more people. And later this year in Johannesburg, we will have 22 more people that are going to be given awards at 3 separate events. And then, of course, this evening, there are 10 people that we are honoring here virtually. Those people who are mostly people who are based internationally and could therefore not be there in person at those events. I'd like to tell you that we have crafted a gift for each of our award winners in the form of a beautiful scroll with the citations of all of the achievements that they have, that we want to honor is on the scroll. And at those in-person events, we hand the scroll to people, but obviously we can't do that this evening with our award winners who are at this occasion. So we've come up with a different process in which Linda and I will take turns to read the citations as they appear on the scrolls. And then in between, we give people a chance to say something if they wish from themselves. So after each citation, we will give people a chance to speak. I need to say to you as well that just before we started this evening, we had a few cancellations of people who, for one reason or another, could in the end not be with us. So there are 4 people. That's Sue Valentine, Anand Naidoo, Audrey Brown, and Sherwin Bryce-Pease are not here with us. But what we've decided to do is to go ahead with the reading of their citations anyway, so that we find a way of honoring them as part of tonight's activities, even if they cannot be here with us. So we will start now with the reading of those citations, but I was instructed by our technical team to tell you the following. Keep your camera on throughout the ceremony. Keep your mics muted until it's your turn to speak. And if you pick up any technical faults, please say so in the chat. So we'll take it from there. And Linda will start us off now.
Thank you, Jean. So the first winner for the evening is Graeme Joffe. Graeme Joffe has been involved in sports journalism since his varsity days. As a student, while doing his journalism degree at Rhodes University, Graeme worked on Rhodes Music Radio. After completing his degree, he moved to Atlanta in the United States, working as a world sports presenter for CNN from 1992 to 1999. On his return to South Africa, Graeme presented Super Sports for Mnet. He spent 8 years with 94.7 Highveld Stereo as a popular sports presenter. He was well known for his presence for the breakfast show, The Rude Awakening, where his stupid sports jokes were a highlight for many listeners. However, Graeme had always taken sports seriously. In 2013, he published his first expose in his Fin Week column of the corruption in South African sports circles, focusing particularly on the management and disbursement of funds from the National Lottery. Shortly thereafter, his column was axed. This was the first in an increasingly serious progression of threats against him as he delved further into the corruption at the highest level of South African sport. In 2015, Graeme fled to the US carrying only a suitcase and a laptop. He has authored a book entitled Sport, Greed and Betrayal, focusing on corruption within sporting federations in South Africa, as well as racism, quotas, and the lack of real transformation at grassroots levels. The book is available to all readers via open access. For his courageous investigative journalism into corruption in South African sports, we honor Graeme Joffe with the JMS50 Alumni Award. Graeme, would you like to say a few words on this?
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate the words, appreciate the citation, and a big, big thank you to Dr. Mabizela and Rhodes University, and happy 50th birthday. What an honor and a privilege to receive this award and to be in this esteemed company here today. Rhodes was the best 3 years of my life. I will never forget every year, because every year was a special year. And having graduated with the majors in journalism and German, the major in journalism set me up for life and allowed me to be able to work in the television, print, and radio industry in South Africa, and obviously television in the United States. I don't think I would have gotten my first job in television if it wasn't for having Rhodes journalism as a major on my resume. Pity that Anand Naidoo isn't here today, a former CNN colleague and one of the best in the business. It really is just good to see so many people that have made such a difference in the journalism world out there here today as well. It is a little bit of a heavy heart when I think about South Africa, obviously being chased out of South Africa in 2015 for telling the truth is still a very bitter pill to swallow. But I have absolutely no regrets of becoming an investigative sports journalist and a whistleblower. As a journalist, you got your ethics and integrity. We cannot be silent. I think too many journalists in South Africa have been silent for too long. It was a dark and lonely 7 years as a lone crusader, but investigative journalism became probably one of my best addictions ever. Dr. Mabizela, I'm sorry that you're not here today, but thank you for your words of encouragement and your strong words. I had the greatest pleasure of working with Dr. Mabizela at the beginning of 2015 when I went back to Grahamstown. And I quote in my book where I say, South Africa would be a far better place if there were more educators like Dr. Sizwe Mabizela. So I'm just so happy to see that you're still at Rhodes University and carrying the flag of the greatest institution in South Africa, education system that is. Rhodes University, again, thank you for this honor. Thank you for this privilege. To all of you out there, congratulations on receiving this award as well. And to Chandra Atta and your whole Rhodes team, what a great job putting this all together. It couldn't have been easy, all the technicalities as well. You guys have been superb. So from my side here in the United States, thank you once again. I'm honored and I'm privileged. Stay well. Hambani Gakle, Salani Gakle.
Thank you, Graeme. The second award winner is Tanya Accone. Tanya Accone received her journalism degree from Rhodes University in the early 1990s, moving seamlessly thereafter into the dawning age of new media and the digital revolution. An early career stint at the Washington Post saw her take web content from conceptualization through to publication for the international, national, business, and classified sections of the WashingtonPost.com, in addition to producing its 24-hour breaking news site, News Digest. At a similar role at the Sunday Times back in South Africa followed before Tanya joined MWeb Africa as one of the group of executives leading the Naspers subsidiary, traveling throughout Africa to develop franchises in local markets. In 2001, Tanya joined UNICEF as Deputy Chief, Internet Broadcast and Image Section. She has been with the organization ever since, co-founding the UNICEF Global Innovation Center in 2014, and working as a senior advisor on innovation, focusing on assisting the public and private sector to achieve preferred outcomes through innovation, people, systems, and technology. Currently senior advisor on innovation, strategy, stakeholders, and thought leadership, Tanya is working towards innovative solutions in over 200 countries worldwide with a vision of realizing UNICEF's child-related sustainable development goals. For her outstanding contribution to innovation and empowerment in media in multiple countries across the world, we are honoring Tanya Accone with the JMS50 Alumni Award. Tanya, would you like to share a few words?
Thank you so much, Jean. And I would, you know, in the late 1980s, which was such a tumultuous time in South Africa where we really didn't know which direction our country would go in and what the future held. I was with my family and we drove through Makhanda, then Grahamstown, and both my parents turned to each other and my brother and I were in the car and they looked at each other and said, I wonder who goes to university in a place like this? And the answer is some of the best people ever, many of whom are right here at this award ceremony. So I would like to thank a number of people. Firstly, the entire kind of Rhodes community, which like Graeme and I'm sure many others was really a formative period in my life. And I think the value of a Rhodes journalism education, learning has been a golden thread throughout my entire career. And I would point to two key things. One, the encouragement of curiosity by the administration, the support of it, and being curious about everything has turned me into a lifelong learner, which has meant that I've been able to sort of shapeshift my career in the way that Linda, you went through. I'm sorry, John, you went through. The second piece is just really around how important it is to be an effective communicator, because it really doesn't matter what role you're in. When you need to tell truth to power, that is more powerful and more receptive when you can be really effective in telling it. The other people that I would like to recognize are my late parents. My mother, who sent an incredible sort of stake in the ground to us as the first person in our family to graduate from university, sadly Wits. The second was my late father, who never let the social norms of the day ever question whether he should invest in the education or the higher education of his daughter, and who always held the highest standards up for my brother and I. And of course, my brother, who is here, Tanya Accone, who really was the pioneer in our family. And I think notable when you talk about, you know, what happens when you cross the glass ceiling, what he really did is open up that door to myself and to many others. And his work has really been pioneering, and it continues to be, around the thing I think that we believe most sincerely, which is, how social service to our country, to our community, and in my case, to the world community, is something that is fundamental and that makes our life worth living. And I think was something that was so central to the Rhodes experience. So thank you for honoring me, but I hope that the reflection is far greater in honoring what the Journalism and Media Studies School has provided to so many people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya. And the third award goes to Sherwin Bryce-Pease, who was born in the Eastern Cape, born and raised in East London. Sherwin Bryce-Pease has excelled in both radio and television journalism. Sherwin started his broadcasting work with RMR during his student years and began his working career as an intern in the Marketing and Communications Division at Rhodes University. Thereafter, completing an internship in marketing as Rhodes University's International Communications Liaison Officer in America. On his return to South Africa, he took up a radio position at SAFM as drive time news anchor and bulletin writer. He then became insert producer and co-anchor of the SABC's Weekend Live and stand-in appearances on SABC2's Morning Live. In 2008, Sherwin returned to the United States as the SABC's US Bureau Chief and correspondent, based at the New York offices of the United Nations. Some of his notable interviews include US President Barack Obama, former South African presidents Jacob Zuma, Thabo Mbeki, and Kgalema Motlanthe, and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, former Chilean president and executive director of the UN, woman Michelle Bachelet, and Nobel laureates Nadine Gordimer and Shirin Ebadi. Sherwin remains a passionate old Rhodian and trustee of the USA Rhodes University Trust. In 2006, he received an Emerging Old Rhodian Award. He has been recognized in the broadcasting category of the UN Correspondents Association Awards and received the Ricardo Ortego Memorial Prize for Television and Radio. For his commitment to radio and television, both locally and abroad, his devotion to his alma mater, Rhodes University, and his work to ensure others receive the opportunities to study here, we honor Sherwin Bryce-Pease with the JMS50 Alumni Award. Unfortunately, Sherwin couldn't be with us tonight. So, Jean.
Yes, we'll go straight to the fourth award winner, which is Angela Quintal. Angela spent 5 years at Rhodes University in the late 1980s, obtaining a B.Journ and LLB. As a student, she set up the Rhodes University branch of Lawyers for Human Rights and was a student volunteer for their street law project. In addition, she was involved with the Faculty of Law magazine, Lawyers for Human Rights in Camera. In a role which merges her dual interests in journalism and human rights law, Angela has served as the Africa Program Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists since 2016. In this role, she leads the CPJ's fight to promote press freedom worldwide, defending the right of journalists to report the news safely and without fear of reprisal. Angela worked for over 2 decades as a journalist in South Africa before moving to New York with the CPJ. She has been the editor of the Mail and Guardian, the Witness and the Mercury, and was presidential correspondent during Nelson Mandela's term as South Africa's first democratically elected president from 1994 to 1999. In a recent interview with the Daily Maverick, Angela noted that I've never been about believing what I'm told without checking it out for myself and reading and listening. The same article notes that the room to question, to read what you like, and even the right to disagree aren't things that she takes for granted, well aware that these freedoms have resulted in journalists being imprisoned, disappeared, and murdered. For her stalwart contribution to journalism and to the protection of journalists and press freedom, we honor Angela Quintal with the JMS50 Alumni Award. Angela, would you like to say a few words?
For sure.
Okay, you need to unmute, I think.
I'm sorry, Angela, would you kindly unmute your mic, please?
It's muted again now. I wonder if we shouldn't proceed to another of the award winners and then maybe come back to Angela once we've sorted sound out.
Are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yes, indeed.
Okay, I will not think that someone is trying to censor me. So thank you. Yeah, as I said, when I received this email a while back saying that I was going to receive this award, I admit that I did think it was a hoax. And so I Googled, and it really was a combination of Google, Facebook, and Julian Jacobs. And that's when I realized actually this was for real. And I say this not because of false modesty, but really to underline the fact that I'm in no doubt that there are countless other people, other graduates from Rhodes, who could have been among the 50 alumni that you finally settled on. So the award is for them as much as it is for me. And they include Donald Presley, who you mentioned passed on earlier today after a long battle with cancer. So Nkosi, thank you very much. And just to sound even more like a cliche, it is really thanks to the journalism and law schools at Rhodes University that I am where I am today. And as a former editor and turned press freedom advocate working on the continent, I do remain passionate about ensuring that journalists can work freely without fear of reprisal. It's the solid grounding that I did receive at Rhodes that has set me on this path. And there really is no doubt about that. And it's in my job as head of the Africa program at the Committee to Protect Journalists that I see the terrible cost of repression on journalists and their families every single day. And I'm well aware, and I heard what Prof. Mabizela said, that South Africa is not immune, you know, and indeed that there is one of us that is being privately prosecuted by a former president, that journalists, particularly women journalists, are being threatened online. And then there are also these existential threats, you know, surveillance technology that is being used against journalists and others. But the reality is that for now, at least, the press freedom situation is far worse, and the dangers for journalists are more acute elsewhere on the continent. And the journalists we are talking about are not internationally recognized journalists working for major news outlets, nor have they received the Nobel Peace Prize. These are ordinary journalists, and they too are paying the price for their journalism, and yet few people even know their names or even care. And as a result, their governments believe they can get away with it, and they do. So a former Minister of Communications in Cameroon once complained about a campaign that we had to force the government to release a jailed journalist in that country. And he said to me, "You have turned a nobody into a somebody." Yeah, that's right. He said, a nobody into a somebody. And it's part of my job, and those of my colleagues at CPJ, to ensure that the world understands that every journalist targeted for their work is a somebody. But it's not only us that should be doing this. You know, I would argue it is the role of every journalist, every journalism student, every journalism graduate, every journalism school, indeed universities, everyone, to ensure that the solidarity is just not talk, and that all those so-called nobodies actually do become somebodies in the eyes of their government. So every day I deal with cases of journalists who are jailed, who are killed, who are assaulted, the censorship, they're hiding for fear of their lives. I'm dealing with cases right now about this very thing. And so what do? You know, I mean, we're a small organization, but among other things, we look for possible allies and partners in this fight. And so this is when I look at the School of Journalism and Media Studies and what it has offered me and thousands of others. I look at the Sol Plaatje Institute. I look at Highway Africa, those great conferences. And I wonder whether there is a role that Rhodes and its journalism school can play in the fight to defend press freedom and the right of every citizen to know, that goes beyond what Rhodes has already done so far. So let me leave the thought here. Is there an opportunity for Rhodes to offer a temporary place of refuge to African journalists in distress or under threat, a safe place for research, for study, for rest and respite? Believe me, I know the obstacles. I know about trying to get visas, emergency visas. Of course, there is the issue of funding. But let me at least put it out there. Can a program be tailored where a journalist in distress from elsewhere in Africa can take time out for a few months as a fellow at Rhodes at Makanda? So as we celebrate 50 years of journalism at Rhodes, can this be part of the school's future vision? And can we, the 50 alumni who have been honored, can we look at ways to help make this happen? And this is when I say, anybody, somebody, Nkosi Kakhulu, Ngomso. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you very much, Angela, for reminding us about the importance of press freedom. The fifth award today goes to Anand Naidoo. As a graduate of the School of Journalism and Media Studies at Rhodes University, Anand has flown the flag high for South African broadcast journalism. He began his career as a newspaper journalist at the now defunct Rand Daily Mail, but began his broadcast career in Belgium, where he has worked as a field producer for Belgian television, as well as producer and anchor for the Belgian Radio World Service. Anand also worked as news editor on Radio 702 and as presenter on Mnet. In the mid-1990s, he was the principal evening news anchor for the SABC in Johannesburg. In 1997, Anand relocated to Atlanta, USA to take the roles of anchor, correspondent, and editor on CNN. For 10 years, he anchored CNN's flagship in-depth news analysis shows, including Insight and Q&A. His anchoring duties were interspersed with several foreign reporting assignments. Anand was a member of the CNN staff when the network was awarded a Peabody Award for the covering of Hurricane Katrina disaster, and an Alfred I. DuPont Columbia University Award for coverage of the Asian tsunami. In 2007, Anand moved to Al Jazeera as news anchor and reporter, hosting Inside Story. In 2012, he moved to CGTN America, where he anchors a daily talk show, interview show called The Heat. In April 2015, Anand was awarded the Bronze Medal for Best News Anchor by the New York Festival's International TV and Films Award for a report on the rise of anti-Semitism in Europe. In 2018, he was again awarded the Bronze Medal at the New York Festivals for an interview with John Nixon, the CIA agent who interrogated Saddam Hussein shortly after the former Iraqi leader's capture by US forces. So for his unstinting dedication to broadcast journalism locally and internationally, we honor Anand Naidoo with the JMS50 Alumni Award. Unfortunately, Anand could not join us tonight.
So we will move on to our 6th award winner, who is Marshall Patsanza. He completed his B.Journ at Rhodes University in 2009. During this time, he worked for the student newspaper Oppidan Press, becoming chief graphic and layout designer. Marshall focused on multimedia and online journalism during his studies, which has stood him in excellent stead in his career since then. He has been working for the IOM UN, International Organization for Migration, since 2015, having served an internship with the UN in 2014. He has filled a variety of roles in digital communications, from digital outreach and content producer to his current role as head of social media. IOM is the leading intergovernmental organization in the field of migration and is committed to the principle that humane and orderly migration benefits migrants and society. Marshall has been an integral part of developing the Global Migration Media Academy, a unique platform designed to standardize media training as well as strengthen ethical and accurate reporting on migration. He was a coordinator for It Takes a Community campaign, which aims to promote a balanced and evidence-based public narrative on migration. Marshall has been involved in many other digital communication efforts for the UN, including coordinating the visibility of IOM's humanitarian assistance in Syria and creating online and digital content for IOM's counter-trafficking awareness campaign, IOMX, which leverages the power of social media to engage young people from Southeast Asia and make them aware of the dangers of human trafficking and exploitation in the region. For using his digital and online skills to promote humane and orderly migration and for working to prevent human trafficking, we honor Marshall Patsanza with a JMS50 Alumni Award. And I know we do have Marshall with us this evening, so I would be very happy to hear from you.
Thank you for that. I'm not going to say much. As someone who's used to communicating within the confines of 240 characters, I'm just going to keep it short. I'd also like to say I'm extremely honored to be recognized for this award. And I'd like to echo what Graeme, Tanya, and Angela said, that if it wasn't for the grounding that we all received from the journalism department, we wouldn't have been able to advance ourselves to where we are in our careers. I still use a lot of the knowledge that I picked up from those JMS1 lectures. And I see a lot of my professors are still here, like Simon is still here, still use some of his writing techniques up to today. So yeah, I think with all of that, I would like to really thank the grounding that the department is giving to a lot of journalists. I still meet a lot of fellow colleagues and peers who also went through the system, who are also doing great things within the journalism community as well. And yeah, and to round it up, I think I would also like to thank the support that I received from my family, some of whom are on this call today. Being a foreign student studying in South Africa, it was not easy, and it was always good to know that I had people back home who were willing to support me. So I'd like to thank all of you for the support, and thanks for the recognition. Thanks.
Thank you, Marshall.
Thank you. The 7th winner is Audrey Brown. Audrey Brown grew up in Soweto in the tumultuous 1980s. Her family was in the thick of South Africa's armed struggle against apartheid, hiding banned books and organizing resistance meetings. One of Audrey's earliest memories of the struggle was the Soweto uprising of 16 June 1976. She particularly recalled the sting of tear gas on her face and in her eyes. From that moment, Audrey became active in the fight against apartheid. As a child, she was inspired by journalists such as Maud Matanyane and Don Matera, and this led to her obtaining a bachelor's degree in journalism, African history and politics from Rhodes University, and later a master's degree from the University of Wales. In addition, she studied film criticism and documentary filmmaking in the Varennes Institute of Cinema Direct in Paris. After starting her career writing for newspapers such as Vrije Weekblad and Weekly Mail in the 80s and early 90s, Audrey has been a broadcast journalist with the BBC World Service since 2005, and she is a senior presenter for BBC's Focus on Africa. Audrey is also a speaker at the TEDx Houston, an event organized by a team of African professionals, which is devoted to using the power of ideas to change the world. So for her decades-long commitment to social justice and change in South Africa and beyond, we honor Aubrey Brown with a JMS50 Alumni Award. Audrey also could not be with us tonight.
So for no further ado, we will go on to our 8th award winner, who is Sue Valentine. And Sue Valentine is also not here with us, but I will read her citation anyway. Sue came to Rhodes University in 1986 to complete a postgraduate diploma in journalism and media studies. During her time here, she was active in the Black Sash and was a member of the End Conscription campaign. In 2002 and 2003, she was a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University. Sue's career in journalism stretches from the transition to democracy in South Africa to the digital revolution that has transformed the production and distribution of news and information. She was media director for IDASA, Institute for Democracy in South Africa, from 1990 to 1996, providing media coverage of IDASA's work during the political transition from apartheid to democracy, and witnessing firsthand the birth of South Africa's democratic constitution and the country's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Sue then founded the Health E-News Service in 1999 at the height of the HIV and AIDS pandemic, to provide consistent evidence-based coverage of the pandemic in an era of AIDS denialism and struggle for access to treatment. Sue has worked for commercial print media, including The Star. She was the executive producer of the SABC's flagship current affairs radio program for 3 years. And from 2013 to 2016, she was the Africa Program Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists, an independent non-profit advocacy organization that works to safeguard press freedom worldwide. Sue is currently manager of the Opening Journalism portfolio in the Open Society Foundation's program on independent journalism based in London. For using journalism to fight for human rights in both the political and health arenas, we honor Sue Valentine with the JMS50 Alumni Award.
And the 9th award goes to Tony Lankester. Tony Lankester graduated from Rhodes University with a B.Journ in 1994. During his student years, Tony devoted his time to Rhodes Music Radio. He was part of the RMR team, which was granted a temporary broadcast license in conjunction with Radio 5 for the National Arts Festival in 1991. For a short but groundbreaking period, RMR broadcast under the name of Festival FM, breaking the 50-year-long SABC monopoly on legal broadcasting. Tony served as station manager at RMR and after graduating became a well-known household name on SAFM, where he spent close to 8 years as talk and magazine producer, program manager, marketing manager. Moving into the corporate world, Tony then filled the roles of external communications manager and sponsorship manager at Old Mutual, while simultaneously presenting a freelance podcast for the Mail and Guardian during the periods of 2005 to 2008. In December 2007, Tony was appointed as CEO of the National Arts Festival and spent almost 12 years in this role, expanding the festival's footprint and taking on additional roles, such as the project management manager of the South African Pavilion at the 2013 Venice Biennale, co-curator of the Creative Digital Arts Festival and chief executive officer of the Saja Fringe Festival in 2019, Tony left South Africa to take up a new role as General Manager of Riverside Studios in London in the United Kingdom. So for his ongoing contribution to the arts, theatre, music and dance, and his role in promoting radio and podcast broadcasting in South Africa, we honor Tony Lankester with the JMS50 Alumni Award. Tony, would you like to say a few words to us?
Yeah, I suppose I've got to start by thanking you and also noting that in the citation you said that I devoted my time to Rhodes Music Radio. The subtle implication of that is that I spent very little time in the lecture hall. So I need to thank you not just for the award, but also for not consulting the academic transcripts when deciding who to give this award to. I feel like a bit of a fraud in some ways, because even though I got the degree, I've worked in the media and I've worked with journalists and the media, I've never actually called myself a journalist. I don't consider myself a journalist. But of course, in the same way that you don't have to go to journalism school to be a journalist, I suppose it's also true that you don't have to be a journalist if you go to journalism school. I would like to think that the fact that the Joan department shared a building with the drama department when I was there, some sort of osmosis happened, which maybe influenced me and affected the future direction of my career. But more importantly, I think what you learn and experience during your university years will fundamentally shape how you think and how you act wherever you go in your career. And it's amazing how so many of the lessons that I learned and the habits that I formed in my university days, good and bad, persist today and are extremely useful to me in my career today. I often hear the voices of lecturers from years gone by in day-to-day life. You know, I can attribute my curiosity about the world around me and the way I find politics so intriguing, down to the way Gavin Stewart used to crack the whip and make sure that we all read the newspapers every single weekend and would quiz us first thing on a Monday morning. Understanding how humans think and how they respond to what they read and hear, the power of language, the importance and the weight of words is so important, and perhaps more important now than ever before. And so many times in my working life, I've gone, ah, yes, okay, so that's what they were talking about. I'm enormously proud to have gone to Rhodes generally and to have been in the Joan department specifically. So I guess it's thank you to the department for giving us alumni something to be proud of and that we can point back to, and for all the work you're doing. And just to echo everything that everyone else has said this evening, the work is ongoing and it is important, and it's important in big ways and in small ways, and never underestimate the impact that you're having on the students and the young minds passing through your building, because who knows where they're going to end up. So thank you very much for the influence that you had on my career and on all of our careers, and thank you for giving me this award. All strength to you.
Thanks, Tony. And last but not least, our 10th award goes to Jin John. After completing a B.Journ degree at Rhodes University in 2006 and a Master's in Media Studies and Practice at the University of Cape Town thereafter, Jin John, a self-declared third culture kid, has gone on to make great use of a multicultural, multi-country upbringing. Jin has had a keen interest in telling stories about people from all walks of life since an early age. She worked as a director and production manager for the SABC at ETV for 5 years before going on to produce a weekly travel program featuring stories in and around Asia. In addition, Jin has produced human interest documentaries for Korea's major public broadcasters, KBS, EBS, and TV Chosun. She launched the International Media Department at Prosum Inc. to continue creating opportunities for international co-productions. In 2013, Jin joined a documentary film project later known as Becoming Who I Was, which followed the journey of a young boy declared to be reincarnated Tibetan High monk. This feature film collected 27 international awards, including the Grand Prix at the Berlin International Film Festival. Political fears, raising funds, and challenging film conditions in the Himalayas meant filming took 8 years to complete. For her commitment to bringing the stories of a wide range of people to life through her journalism and documentary filmmaking, we honor Jin John with a JMS50 Alumni Award. Jin.
Thank you so much for this award. When I was contacted, I was so excited because I think for me, more than any other, achievement. I was just so happy that Rhodes, where I find, where I belong, has recognized me. And today here sitting with, getting introduced to Tony, Angela, and all these wonderful people, I feel like I don't deserve this award. I think Rhodes really did a lot for me. I think it was some of the best years of my life as well. And I think at the time, because I grew up internationally and had spent my teenage years in South Africa, I was still struggling a lot with racism and the things that were going on at the time. I think I found my identity at Rhodes University. And since then, it's really helped me to produce documentaries that speak about identity. And really do human interest stories that are telling the truth about different cultures and different societies. I think truth can't be impartial, but there's truth to be told. And I think that really comes from all the learning that I had from journalism. And I think it's such an important platform with documentaries to open up a conversation and to actually embrace the different perspectives and the cultures out there. But I really have to thank the journalism school for everything that they've done for me, you guys. And I'm so happy to see that Guy Berger is still here, Alette Schoon, all the wonderful lecturers that I had. I also want to just thank my twin sister, Uju. I don't know if you see her, she's my identical twin. There, she looks exactly like me. And we're always matching, even if we don't make an effort for it. So yeah, my family is like, has been such a great support through my career. And yeah, I just want to thank you guys and the family as well.
Thank you for that, Jin. And I know that I think you've joined us from 2 o'clock in the morning from South Korea, so that's really appreciated both for you and Uju. So those are all the awards that we were presenting this evening, and then over the next few weeks we will be sending you your scroll. So hopefully in the post one of these days you receive a scroll beautifully. When you open it up, you'll see that it's a scroll that's about this big, and our design teacher, Brian Garman, has very beautifully designed it so that it's quite a special thing. In the final part of our evening now, we will spend a few moments talking about the other matter that I said we are here to talk about this evening, which is the idea of partnerships between the school and its alumni. I was listening quite carefully to Angela when she was mentioning that idea of safe spaces for African journalists. It's ideas like that we'd like to explore with our alumni. Many of you this evening have spoken about important issues that are faced by journalists around the world and by the people that they serve. So we have asked Zubaida to talk briefly to you about another conversation that we'd like to set up, that we'd like you to participate in, to help us come up with ideas about how we can work together to do what we do even better. So Zubaida, I'm handing over to you at this stage to lead us in that conversation.
Thank you very much, Jean. I assume you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
I wish we had a way to all clap together or something, because what we heard and the citations were just so amazing. All of you there. I mean, sometimes, one doesn't realize what you've done with your life, but when somebody puts it together and they put it there and for everybody to hear, then it's a really, really fabulous and extraordinary. So I don't know how we do it. The best I can do is to clap extensively to all of you and to say that it's such a pity that we don't all together in one space, so that the families and the friends, whoever's around there in your homes, could hear and could feel the excitement that I'm sure everybody feels in looking back and, being amazed by this body of work. And just this is 10 alumni, but there's been other, I haven't been at all the events, but there've been other events. So can you imagine 10 like these multiplied by 5 by the end of the year? it's extraordinary, it's mind-blowing, and I must thank the journalism school and the team there, Anthea, John, Linda, everybody that's part of the staff there for coming up with this idea of recognizing so many of us and reminding us what we have gained, you know, and what we have learned over many, many years. The question is, and what John, she's already mentioned it, the question is that, as we know, the question is that we need to think, how do we kind of, you know, utilize this group as a launching pad to mobilize more alumni, journalism alumni, and visualize what we want to do. I wouldn't say 50 years from now, we won't be around. Maybe many of us won't be around, but maybe 10 or 20 years from now, what do we want to see? What do we see as a possibility? I think that, again, Angela, as John said, mentioned and suggested some ideas, but the idea is that we would like to send out a questionnaire to ask to ask you to add your ideas and to suggest thoughts about possible mentoring, possible internships, possible funding. I mean, do we all give a small amount of money every month and see after 10 years where that money is? You know, what is it that we can do that can strengthen the work that has been done? Because often I say, when I've been to Rhodes recently, to the school, I'm just amazed to see what the facilities are like. The facilities are extraordinary, because I've also been connected to other schools in poorer provinces than ours, than in poorer provinces around the country that don't have an inch of the resources and the facilities. So we know we have to, you know, say thank you to Guy Berger and his team for during those years to have the foresight to create the building, the facilities. And so thank you very much, Guy, and all of you were involved. I know it was, you had a whole team. But what can we do? Do we just say, oh, how wonderful, we got these awards and we're very pleased, and we should be pleased. There's nothing wrong in being delighted. But what do we do? What can we do? Because as we know from our experience, that is the small things that many of us do that snowball into something bigger over years. And it's those small things that can bring substantial change. It's not big things that we need to do, but we need many of us to do many small things. And writing, of course, is particularly my passion. Writing and writing well. We need to do a lot of work in working with individual students to assist, because now that things have changed, or there's been a change in the country, we won't discuss, you know, the detail of that right now, but we all have our views. But a lot of the students that are coming into the school, from what I've been told, are second language English speakers. And so what does that mean? How do we kind of assist? What do we do? How do we deal with multilingualism? And so we want to, tomorrow, I think, or the next day, Jean will send out a questionnaire which lists some of the possibilities, some of the ideas. You're free to add whatever you want to by the 6th of November, to share it with other alumni. It doesn't have to be confined to us, I would imagine. And then for us to have a further discussion on the 10th of November at 7 o'clock. And I really hope that as many of you as possible could come together, we could come together on that day, that night, and start the discussion, and to see maybe initially only the small things that we can do, the realistic things that we can do. I mean, if Angela wants to take on that idea, maybe there'll be a few people who will work with her, and the monies can be raised to bring fellows from other countries who are being persecuted to Makanda. That would be fantastic. So it's all things that we have to come up with ideas that we think we can do, and we can mobilize people to enough resources to build the school into something even more wonderful 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. And they'll say that 50 years ago, this is what we did, and look where we are now 50 years later. So thank you very much. I hope that you all respond to the questionnaire. You'll take it seriously, because as you know, throughout the world, journalists and journalism is under pressure, and journalists are questioning the industry, the academic sphere. People are questioning many of our precepts, long-held precepts. So are people going to be throwing out all these things with throw the baby out with the bathwater, or are we going to come up with refined approaches to be able to consolidate what we've learned and extend and find a way to deal with new circumstances? I was in a meeting at Columbia University recently, because I serve on the alumni board there, and they've got a new dean for the first time in the history of Columbia. They've got a black dean, Dean Jelani Cobb, and he even opened up the discussion about objectivity and what it means, and how do we manage, I mean, are the news media being objective in what they are reporting? So there's a whole area of, and a whole new sort of mood, I sense, that we need to be aware of, and then to see how we can actually make the school benefit from this. So thank you very much, John. Thank you so much, and I hope that that all of you where you are understand that that tonight was amazing and wonderful, even though we are not all together. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Zubaida. I see that Angie Kaplian has just arrived from the waiting room. Welcome, Angie. It's nice to have you here as well. And yes, I think everything that Zubaida said just now, I echo. So the invitation to everybody here, and it's not just the people who are winning awards, but everybody who is an alumni here, is to join us 2 weeks from now at 7 o'clock on Thursday evening of November 10 for a follow-up discussion in which we can talk about ways in which we can work together. Zubaida mentioned that alumni board that she belongs to at Columbia University. That's one of the things that we want to talk about. Is there not perhaps a possibility for a board that we can create, that people can volunteer to be part of, so that we can have a sounding board space for ideas where alumni can talk back to us? And as you will see from that questionnaire, there's a range of other thoughts there as well as space for you to come up with your own suggestions. So please look out for the link that we will send you to that questionnaire. But this is really as far as we're taking it for tonight. So all that's left for me to say is to thank you, to thank everyone for joining us and for sharing yourselves with us tonight. I also hope that you can join us at that meeting 2 weeks from now, but also later at the end of November when we have our final alumni events in Johannesburg. Please join us there. It would be lovely to have you, even if you're not one of the people who are receiving awards there, just to be part of our community there. And yeah, it would be nice to see you there and to have you as part of the school's community much more going forward. But for now, goodbye and go well.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for hosting.
Thanks, everybody.
Go well, everybody. Go well.